Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name is Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk, and UK Astrologer. Hello. Now there's a big celebration today. Dun, 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 dun. This is episode 400. There are now 400 episodes of Learn Astrology with Mary. So today I'm celebrating, and I hope you'd like to celebrate with me. And if you listen to the end of the episode, you'll get a discount code. So, 400 episodes. So what I'd like to do today is just tell you a little bit about when the podcast started, and we're going to do the charts for it. So I've got 3 charts. So I never really like to do more than 3 charts. I've got 3 charts today. When I first created the first episode. So this is the time that the recording was complete and I'd finished it, and I think this is the exact time that I actually recorded it. So I can't remember if this is the time that I uploaded it or the time I recorded it, but I've called it first episode. So this is the first episode that I made. And then the second chart we're going to look at is I managed to accidentally delete 40-something episodes accidentally. And I managed to do that the following year. And then I'm going to do the chart of when I re-uploaded everything, having absolutely torn my hair out, because there's nothing worse than create something. I don't know if you've ever knitted or crocheted or sewn even, and you have to unpick something and it's off, or if you doing some gardening and then you've planted something in the wrong place and you've got to dig it all up and stick it somewhere else. That's very much a Mercury retrograde thing, which is where we are at the moment. So what I want to demonstrate with you today is that if you're creating something, and especially if you're starting your own podcast or you're starting your own business or you're just about to go into private practice as an astrologer, do a chart for that first moment of the first part of the creation, so the creating of that first thing. Now I do have saved somewhere on some old Mac the actual audio itself, but I wasn't going to go plugging that in and search around this morning, otherwise you never would have got an episode today. I would still be searching for things, but I'm going to trust that the charts that I made are what so I've called this first episode creation, so that would have been when I had created it. So I must have logged somewhere, because I saved it onto astro.com and I checked to see when I'd saved it, and it was pretty much quite a while ago. So yeah, there's that as well. And the other thing you have to remember is that half the time when you do stuff, it's date stamped anyway. Take a photograph on your phone, the time that you took it will be on there. Send an email to someone, there'll be the time that you sent it, and then the person at the other end will have the time that it arrived in their inbox, and then you can get software that will also let you know what time the flipping well opened it. So it's not so difficult these days to find the time of things. Now I need to talk about, just quickly, about what prompted me to create the podcast. I didn't do it to make money. That was not the motivator for my even starting it. I'd read a book about podcast creation. I thought, that sounds really interesting. I fancy doing that. And I was already teaching, and I still teach, one-on-one astrology to people. I just thought, and the reason I created it was that I'd found when I first started learning astrology that it was hellishly difficult. A, I didn't have a teacher, and I was teaching myself, but B, there was just it all seemed to blur, and I thought, what would make it easier for people to learn? So that was my motivating thing to doing it. And I thought, what if I do a podcast and just sort of teach astrology in the same way that I teach one-on-one? So it's near enough identical. I start with the chart shape, go into all the planets and the signs, and then the houses, and then the aspects, and the first 20 episodes follow very much similar, if not the same, to when I'm teaching it one-on-one. But because podcasts obviously are audio based and not so visual. I wanted to make sure that what I was teaching was conceptually listenable to, and also would help people down, because it's a pretty difficult subject, especially when you start. You can get into a blow, and when I was doing the podcast, I didn't want that to be the case. I also had a vast quantity of people on my newsletter list who very kindly volunteered their charts, so they're in the first few episodes. Now, some things went missing when I had to re-upload it, but we'll look at all those charts and like, whoa, what were you doing, Miriam? What was going on? So we're going to go through 3 charts. So the creation of the first episode, me accidentally and stupidly deleting it all. It was funny because I was looking in my emails to find out when it was I did that, and when I'd realised I'd done it, I then immediately sent an email to the help people at Libsyn, the platform that I use, and I'm a little bit over expressive when I send emails, and I'd headed the email which is spelled ARRGG, 3 G's and an H, and I'd gone because I'd accidentally done it. I just didn't know what I'd done. I think I was trying to link it to my blog, and I accidentally did something. Anyway, I was all over the place. I couldn't believe, I mean, I still had the audios on my Mac, but I just like, oh my god, what have I done, blah blah blah. And actually, I think I was on holiday. I was on holiday at that point in time as well. And so I got an automatic response back from Libsyn, so I know that time that it comes back, because that's automatic. Bing, you get the email back, so I know that that's the exact. It would have been a few minutes before that I deleted the whole flapping lot. But so off we go. So we're celebrating 400 episodes, and this is the chart for the creation of the first episode. As I say, wasn't doing it for financial reasons. I literally was doing it for it seemed fun. And what's nice about this chart, so here we are, we're looking at it, it's got a Leo ascendant. If something is going to be fun, we want to have Leo in there somewhere. It's the most fun sign of the zodiac. Now, some people could not enjoy the type of fun that Leo might enjoy, but if I'm thinking of fun, I want to look at a bit, where's the Leo in the chart? Leo ascendant, which I have myself, confession, and the sun is in the 5th. So nice. So the first episode was created on the 26th of December 2016. Now, I think on Libsyn, the copyright notice at the bottom of each episode is still copyright 2016. So this is just towards this is just after Christmas. I must have been bored on Boxing Day, 26th of December 2016, and I got 8:13 in the evening. So this is 2016 when the first one was created, and I'd already got my account with the Libsyn. I'd investigated how to do it, and I'd got all the things necessary. The first 20 or so episodes, the sound is pretty much atrocious because I didn't have a proper microphone. All I had was one of those funny little things that you put around your face. I don't think you see people with them anymore, but it sort of goes around the side of your face on a little sort of wire, and then the microphone's just in front of the mouth. So nice happy chart. Leo ascendant, sun in the 5th. Mercury is the planet communication, and it's retrograding. So the first episode goes out and Mercury's retrograde, but that's okay because I was born with a Mercury retrograde. Now, maybe I should have paid attention to that, because eventually there was going to be something creative that was going to go backwards, because it's the following year that I managed to delete everything. But hey, I'm quite good at making mistakes. What a funny thing to say. But I am. I do make quite a lot of mistakes, especially when I first start something, because I've got Pluto in Libra in the first house, and whenever not that my first house starts in Leo, but a very late degree, but I've got Pluto and Virgo in there, and it's almost as if my Pluto will just go whoomph into something, and then like, bleh. And so I always have to remember that if I start something, there'll always be some sort of crisis right at the beginning of it. That's what Pluto will bring about. I can't remember if my Pluto's retrograde. Hold on, have a quick check. I don't think it is. Oh, well, there we go. I lied to myself. My Pluto is retrograde. Yes, so we've got the ruler to the chart in the 5th. So that's a fitting thing to do if something is created for creativity's sake. And I really enjoyed making those first episodes. I still enjoy doing it to this day. The moon is in Sagi in the 4th house of home and roots, and I recorded it at home. And I was just sort of wondering, is there anything that would indicate podcasting if we're thinking about horary astrology? What house or sign would that apply to? Because, back in the day when astrology was invented, they certainly didn't have podcasting. But I would have thought it would be the 3rd house, and I would have thought it would be Mercury. So we've got in this first episode chart, we have got Mercury retrograde having to redo. I probably had to redo quite a bit at the beginning because learning how to podcast. The creation of a podcast is quite complex, actually, just as complex as something like creating a YouTube thingy. If you've got no techno skills, it all falls downwards. But anyway, so 3rd house in this creation chart starts in the sign of Libra, is ruled by Venus, and Venus is in the 6th in the sign of Aquarius, so weird and wacky. But what stands out in this first episode creation, is that Jupiter and Uranus are in direct opposition to each other, and Jupiter's in the 2nd. It definitely costs me money to host a podcast. Now, I'm right in the middle of doing my tax return at the moment. If you're self-employed and you live in the UK, it's something you have to do every year. It needs to be done by, I don't know, some day in January, but I never do it then. I always get it in the bag by October. But I decided to do it at the minute. And I just sort of like, oh my goodness, it costs me money to host the podcast. But I sort of think, but well, I don't spend money on alcohol, so that's quite cute. And Uranus is in direct opposition, so we've got retrograde Uranus in Aries in the 8th house of investments and other people's money, and it's retrograding and it's in the sign of Aries, and yes, it does cost me. And Jupiter's in the 2nd and it's in the sign of Libra. And but it's also, Jupiter's also about learning, and I'm learning on the job as I'm doing this. Yeah. Now, the North Node is in Virgo and it's in the 1st house, so that's the soul of this chart, and Virgo is about health and healing, and it's also a Mercury ruled sign. And I'm just looking to see how that compares with my chart, because I've got me Pluto, but he's a late degree, I'm sure he is. Let's get me flipping chart back up again. Yeah, my North Node is also in Virgo in the 1st house, so that's actually matches quite nicely to my chart, because I've got natal Venus 17 degrees Aquarius, and this chart Venus is 21 degrees Aquarius, and mine, and in the podcast first creation episode chart, Venus is in the 6th. Mars is in a different location, and I'm a sun sign pesky Pisces, and in the creation chart there's Neptune and Mars in the 7th. So I'm like, I am blurry while I'm doing this. Look at that, Chiron's 20 degrees in the 7th, and my Mercury's retrograde Pisces 24 degrees in the 7th, and this chart is in the 7th. Chiron's there as well, so lots of learning. I don't possess any planets in Sagi, but in the creation chart, the moon and Saturn in Sagi, so the 4th is home and roots. I did broadcast it from home, and being in Sagittarius, is international because the podcast platform is American and the episodes go out all over the world. And just to remind you, there's been 500,000 downloads. I'm very, very proud about how many downloads there are. So 500,000 downloads. La la la. Hello everybody that's listening and has listened. Now, because the ruler to the third is in the sixth, I think in those first few episodes, quite a lot of those people that were the volunteer charts were actually clients of mine that were not so much astrology clients. Some of them were like had come for homeopathy and stuff, so that would be the connection there. But that big Uranus Jupiter opposition, so Jupiter's about learning in Libra in the second, so that can be beneficial financially, and it has long term, because this is where predominantly a lot of my clients now find me, is via the podcast, which is Lush. But the Uranus in the eighth, and it being retrograde in opposition to that, it's, there was a big hole in my finances when it first started. Well, it's still a hole because of that, but it's because I enjoy it that I continue to do it. Now, so if we're looking at Mercury, because that's about knowledge and learning in the fifth, and it's retrograde, it is conjunct Pluto. Because in 2016, Pluto was still in the sign of Capricorn. That's all in the fifth. So deep change with the communication of things. And it's a one-sided chart. Look at that. La-di-da. And Pluto, Neptune and Uranus are Capricorn, Pisces, Aries. So there's those three outer planets are near to each other, and Neptune and Uranus are in adjacent signs. So I think I've covered everything. And the MC's in Taurus, which it natally is in my chart anyway. Steady and dependable. And it just so happens I have done an episode every week. So I don't know how many weeks that out, but 400 episodes is 400 weeks, which will be a total of how many? 33.33 recurring months. So is that right? No, that's wrong, Mary. You're no good at maths. Right, if we divide it by 52, because there's 52 weeks in the year, that's 7.69 years. So 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 8 years. But I started just in December. Okay, that's about right. So it's approximately 7-8 years worth of podcasting-y things. You can tell maths is no good for me, can't you? So that's the creation of the first episode. And for me, it suits the Leo. If you're going to do something in front of other people, then Leo's going to help, because Leo doesn't mind showing off. And I take ownership of that. I don't mind showing off. Whatever you classify as showing off, performing, blah, 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 blah. I'm okay with that. And I might be very nervous afterwards, but I'm okay with that. So what other aspects we've got? We've got Pluto square to Uranus. Deep change, transformation, sudden things. So the fifth and the eighth are connected. Fifth is creativity, eighth is hidden stuff. We've got Moon square to Mars. So emotionally a bit bumpy. There were a few people that wrote reviews for the first few episodes saying how atrocious the audio was. It did depend what platform they're listening on. I mean, they're audible enough to be able to hear, but I didn't have all the techno equipment. And one kind lady did write a review on iTunes, saying that she was going to write the review in the hope that would, you don't make money out of the reviews, let me tell you. But anyway, she wrote a nice review saying she's hoping that would help and I'd be able to get some proper equipment. But I don't get money from the podcast. Just need to point out the podcast costs me money. So this is very much what this chart is telling me. It costs me money to run the podcast. I get the side effect benefit of that. Somebody might listen and go, oh, Mary, I'm going to have a reading or whatever, but it wasn't why it was created, and I wouldn't use it, podcast purposes to make an income. I'd be completely looking at different things here. But for creative exercise, which this definitely is, and it's every Sunday that the episode comes out. It's very rarely I do it any other point. It's only if I'm going on holiday or something's happening on that particular Sunday, but that's 400 Sundays I've been sat here in my front room. La la la. Okay, now we get to the 15th of October 2017, and by the time 7:16, I have successfully managed to accidentally delete 40-something episodes. Eek, eek, eek. And Mercury wasn't even retrograde, so I can't even blame that. What I could, inverted commas, blame is that in the 4th house, the moon is there again. So this is, trust me, I was emotional on a scale of 1 to 10. It was about 400. We've got a similar thing to the first question. We've got the moon in the 4th, but now it's in opposition to Neptune, like blurry, what am I doing, blah, blah, blah. And this is the 10th, and it's the career, and it's retrograde, and the world's going to end. But the ascendant to the chart is Taurus, and the ruler to that is Venus, and Venus is in the 5th. So this is my creation, the thing that I've created. I've successfully managed to botch it. However, that's a happy thing, because if your ruler to your chart is in a house where you're doing whatever it is, which is 5th house creation stuff, there will be a positive outcome. So if something happens and you're doing an Ori chart, the ruler to it, and we're talking about 5th house creation, so the first one, ruler to the chart, is the sun is in the 5th. Now again, ruler to the chart is Venus, and Venus is in the 5th, as well as the sun, just happens to be there. So that's a more positive outlook. But what's, inverted commas, caused it, look what's opposition to Mercury. Mercury is directly opposition to Uranus, and Uranus is retrograding, so it'll, even though Mercury isn't retrograde, it's going to affect things. And it's also, Uranus in the 12th is opposition to Jupiter, and Uranus, I think, is also opposition to the sun in the 5th. It's like, and if we're looking at something electrical, which a podcast is, because without electricity, trust me on this one, podcasts would not exist. So in the first creation one, Jupiter's opposition Uranus is hidden in the 8th house. It doesn't really make much odds. And now it's, Uranus is hidden again, and this time it's in the 12th. So I've got to be aware, and I'll pass this on to you as well, as if anybody's doing a podcast or whatever, pay attention to where Uranus is, especially if it's retrograding. So it was retrograding on the first episode, it's retrograding again on the accidentally deleting things, and things have been chugging along quite nicely. But it was sort of one of those horrible learning curves, and you just thought, oh, my world has ended. And I did that once writing a book. I was doing the Capricorn book. Trust me, I don't make these mistakes now. I was doing the Capricorn book, and I saved it to one of those little things you plug into your computer. What the heck are they called? It was a memory stick. And I'd plugged it into wherever I was working. I can't remember if it was on a laptop or on my Mac Mini, and I pulled it out. So I sort of clicked save, and then pulled it out just that little bit too quick, and it hadn't finished saving. I didn't wait for the lights to flash, Mrs. Impatient, and that was it. I went back to the memory stick, and the whole flipping book had disappeared. And that was the only place that I'd saved it. I hadn't saved it anywhere else, just on these, because that's how I created them when I first started making the bloody things. I was creating, saving it to memory stick. Oh, saved it to memory stick. I hadn't even saved it to the computer. I don't know what I was thinking. And now when I write, I email it to myself. I'll upload a copy to Google Drive. I'll save it on the computer. I'll mass save the flipping things when I write. It's such a horrible thing, deleting stuff that you, but again, this is how I learn. I make a mistake, I learn, and never do it again. So we've got Uranus is now still opposition to Jupiter, but Jupiter's now slipped into the sign of Scorpio. Mercury is 27 degrees Libra. The Sun is 22 degrees Libra. So in the 5th house, creativity, which we need to concentrate on with my creativity, we've got Mars in Virgo, 25 degrees, and Venus, 1 degrees Libra. And the person that I'm communicating with was extremely helpful and polite. I wasn't not polite, I was just in a flap. I was sort of hoping they could help, and they did help, and they sent me, they responded as quickly as they could. So there's me uploading and doing stuff on a day, because this is the day that it happens, is the 15th of October, where for the whole of that day those planets would be in opposition. The moon would be working its way to an opposition even further and stuff. So those stresses that are in the chart were actually occurring. And in the 3rd house, now we've got the North Node, so 3rd house communication, we've got the North Node is in Leo. Saturn's in the 7th in Sagi. So it's only moved 3 degrees since I first created it. But on the day that I'm doing it, I've got Mercury opposition a retrograde Uranus. So, oops, make a mental note, Mary. Don't do too much, or double check everything you're doing while you're doing stuff. And it had a positive outcome, as I say, because the ruler to the chart is in the 5th, and that's where I wanted the positive outcome to be, the 5th house of creativity. Yeah. So when you're doing orrery astrology and you're trying to determine, I should concentrate, always look at the ruler to the chart. What house is it located in, and is that the house that you want the stuff to happen? I mean, this would be hopeless for something like, is my relationship going to last? Because the ruler to it is in the 5th. Oh yeah, there might be a bit of romance, but if you want long-term relations, you've got Saturn in Sagi in the 7th there, and it's squaring lots of other stuff. If you're asking a question about money, the ruler of the chart is in the 5th. There's nothing financial involved in the 5th. The 5th is the 2nd and the 8th. And the 2nd is ruled, starting in Gemini, ruled by Mercury. Mercury's in the 6th. You're going to be sick as far as finances go. It didn't cost me any extra to re-upload it, apart from time, and obviously that's time I couldn't spend with clients. So then by the 20th of October everything is now completely re-uploaded. So I've called this one first episode again. So this is 20th of October 2017, and now everything is back up again. So those first episodes, the first episode and all the first episode, the first 43 of them, 40-something of them are re-uploaded again. So we've got 20th of October 2017, 5:07 p.m. So now I'm emailing the chap at Libsyn, and I go, they're all up again, and that's when they're now all re-uploaded. And we've got Pisces rising. Neptune's in Pisces in the 12th, which is a happy enough place for it to be. The Sun is in the 8th. The Sun is conjunct Jupiter, conjunct Mercury, and the moon's in Scorpio. And actually, that's quite good for stuff that is mystical, etc. So a lot of people that listen to the first few episodes and then just ping off into outer space and never return are interested in the mystical stuff. So we have got the mystical houses, which is the 12th and the 8th, pretty much nice ruler to that. So Neptune, even though it's retrograde, is in the 12th. And then the 8th, mystical house, the other world and stuff. So I don't get so much now, but I used to get numbers of emails from people asking me sort of Scorpio type things and questions and stuff about their own chart, which I still get today. People do still randomly email me, and I love it when it happens. And the Pisces ascendant is 23 degrees. My Mercury retrograding is 24 degrees. So I've just managed to get it in a little bit less than a degree before my own retrograde. Mercury is 24 degrees. So 23 degrees is good enough. And it was a re-upload to something. But if you've got Pisces ascendant, you've got 2 rulers to that. The other one is Jupiter, so Jupiter's in the 8th. So I didn't make a big thing about re-uploading it. I didn't sort of write on the podcast itself, this is a re-upload. It was quite a few years later that I wrote something, because what I didn't realise at that moment in time was that all the, oh my God, that took me ages, all the artwork that went with it, that obviously disappeared as well. So then first of all I put all the audio up, and then I had to spend, it took me absolutely ages to put all the charts back up again. And I think it was because somebody emailed me, well, where were the charts? I was like, I don't know. So I had to read. So even though everything's gone back up, there's still that blurry sort of Pisces energy there. What else? We've got Pluto in the 10th. And we've got Saturn right next door to the MC. So this is the podcast was taken seriously as a thing. Uranus is still in opposition to Jupiter. It's going to take a while for that to totally shift. And opposition the Sun and Mercury. I don't know if it's opposition. No, it's not opposition to the Moon. I think Mercury's opposite. Yes, so Sun's opposition to Uranus, Mercury's opposition to Uranus, and Jupiter's opposition to Uranus. So there's quite a lot of energy going between those 2 planets. 2nd house, my money. 8th house, other people's money and my investments. Because I have to look at it from my point of view, because it's the podcast that I created myself. And the North Node is in the 5th, so it's like, hurrah! We've still got the 5th house in the sign of Leo, which is not all of it because it starts in the sign of Cancer, but there's a bit of Leo in there, and the North Node is there. So it's like, well, if you're going to be doing something creative, then hey, you've got to carry on creating, would be the message that I would be sending myself. But I didn't do these charts at the time. I'm doing them now retrospectively because I was too busy sorting stuff out. I was just like, oh, what was going on? We've got a bit of a squarey thing going on with Pluto, Uranus and Venus, I think. Venus square Pluto and Pluto square Uranus. And that's the 7th house of relationships. So the Venus and Mars are in the 7th. And that's other people and relationships and stuff. I mean, there are some positive aspects. Neptune's sending some positivity out there. Neptune's trining to the Moon and trining to Mercury and trining to Jupiter. So the fact that there's a trine between the 2 rulerships to the chart is a little bit sort of optimistic, but I really wouldn't myself choose a chart like that. I'd probably, if this happened again, or anything like that, I think I might choose a different time. But, sometimes at the moment when things happen, you can't, even though you're an astrologer, even though I'm an astrologer, I don't always have the time to go, oh, should I do that now? It's like you're just too busy doing something. You're living your life, you're doing stuff. It can be quite difficult to go, unless you got noticed to something like a lady friend of mine is in hospital at the moment, having had an operation. She wanted me to look to see if it would be successful. And I said, yeah, but I didn't. I don't want to look to see whether or not your operation is going to be successful. We're just going to assume your operation is going to be successful. We're going to look at the planets afterwards if things aren't. You don't have a choice to the date that you choose when it's on the NHS. You just got to go for it. Otherwise, you miss your appointment. Maybe it'd be different if it was private. But I think there's a limit to predictive sort of preparation-y type of charts, except for something like starting a business. The official start of something, you could be peripherring around the edges of it and preparing. That's different. But sometimes you just have to do things, and this is why astrology is useful, to go back and look retrospectively to something else. What was the foundation to this? Is it firm enough for it to exist? Which, if we look at the first episode, creation, yes, it is, because the ruler to the chart is in the 5th, and it was a necessary thing for me to do. I wanted to be creative. I like being creative anyway. And so the creation side of it, which is still runs along those lines. is useful. So we're celebrating 400, so celebrate with me. And to help me celebrate, if you go to my website and book yourself a reading, you've got a choice of 5 different readings, and you can have a 10% discount for those 5 readings. And the readings are, so I'll read them out to you. Psychic reading, which is 1 hour long and costs £72 and includes 4 decks of cards, your birth chart, and is recorded on Skype so you can keep it forever. So you get 10% off a psychic reading, which is cards, 4 different decks. So there's the playing cards, which lets us know practically what's happening to you at the moment. The rune cards, which is what you need emotionally assistance with at the moment. The karma cards, well, you can guess what they're all about. They're working with your higher self to get the answer to a question. And the Celtic deck, which lets us know what your soul needs at the moment. So those 4 decks of cards are included in the psychic reading, which costs 72 UK pounds, and you'll get 10% off all of the ones that I'm reading out for you now. There's a bronze level astro, which is 1 hour for people that have already had a reading, which is £55. You get 10% off that, but you must have had a reading with me prior. If you haven't, the system will detect that you haven't and you won't be able to book it. There's a 1 hour silver reading, so if you've never had a reading, that's 1 hour long, that's £66. Includes your natal chart, which we go all the way through, and your present transits and transits coming up for the next 4 to 5 years. And then there's the gold level, which is £77, which is 90 minutes long, which will also include a synastry with somebody else if you want to, expanding things a bit more, natal chart, progress chart, might do some solar things and other bits and bobs, and that's 90 minutes long, 10% off that. Or if you can't book an appointment because you live somewhere that your calendar and mine don't match, I do a thing called a pre-record, which is £66. So with that, you get an audio sent to you that's 1 hour long, exactly the same as a silver reading, but that's pre-recorded. So you ping me over your questions, and then I pre-record onto audio as an MP3. I upload that to WeTransfer. So on the WeTransfer platform, you can download it and you can listen to it for as long as you like, because you've got that forever and ever as a proper little MP3. That comes with charts as well. So those psychic reading bronze, if you're a client already, silver reading if you're not, gold if you're not, well, even if you are, 90-minute session, £77, and a pre-record, £66. All of those readings, all 5 of those, you can get a 10% discount, and this is how you do it. So you book it, and then where it asks you for the discount code, in the discount code you put these letters and numbers, POD 10, and you'll get 10%. So it's POD for pod, because you're a podcast listener. Thank you very much for listening, and you get 10% off. So it's POD and the numbers numerical 10, which is 10. Stick that in the discount box and it'll automatically take you 10% off any one of those readings. Now it's valid until, we're 2024 now, and it's valid until the 31st of September. Let me just double check. There's 31 days in September. Oops, I lied. There's 30 days, so it's valid until the 30th of September 2024. And you don't have to have your reading straight away. You can book 3 months in advance on my booking app. So this is only for podcast listeners that have got to the end of the episode. This is not for newsletter subscribers. They get plenty of discounts. This is for podcast listeners. Okay, so if you listen to this episode and you want to use the discount, you go to my website and you click to book an appointment. You choose one of those 5 that I've just read out to you and put POD 10, and you'll get 10% off to help me celebrate. We'll celebrate together. There is 400 episodes of the Learn Astrology with Mary podcast. So if you've got a chart you'd like me to go through, your own chart, I do that, then please ping it over to me. If you've got any questions about astrology or you'd like to learn a bit more about it, again, ping me an email, mary@maryenglish.co.uk. And I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. Bye bye now.